Hello guys, this is Felipe from the Noob Trader, and as you can see, I'm not home right now, but I wanted to quickly jump on to do a quick video to kind of give my thoughts on the CPI data that just came out. Obviously, it was slightly lower than expectations, but as we can also see, the gold price is reacting pretty positively right now. But I don't want to do any technical price analysis on gold at the moment, but rather I just wanted to give my thoughts fundamentally why I believe that the data came out is positive for gold and should lead to some pretty positive price action over the coming days, provided obviously that people aren't taking profits or whatever, but fundamentally it should lead to positive price action. Okay, if we look at the actual data that came out, the core CAPI was slightly lower than expected at 0.1%. Some of the reasons that this was actually the case were because the price of used cars went down a little bit. You know, the demand has declined, prices have gone down. Same with airline fares. But I think the really key important thing to focus on more than anything is not just that the core CPI was a little bit down, but the CPI year on year is still met expectations at 5.3%. Okay. And um, you may actually wonder, like, so based on this data, like, why is the price of gold pushing upwards right now? And of course, let's bear in mind that this is the short-term initial movement to the market, but fundamentally, why would this potentially push, like data like this, why would it fundamentally push gold up in price? And my personal opinion on this is, well, it's a couple things, okay? The first thing is that the fact that this core CPI actually declined a little bit here on the month-to-month provides the Fed with the ultimate ammo, the ultimate um, basically excuse to continue their monetary policy, their super low interest rates, basically continuing to print money, right? The fact that now that they can actually claim, right, the narrative that they've been pushing for so long, the inflation right now is just transitory due to the pandemic, blah, 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 right? That this inflation isn't real. It's just inflation that was caused due to basically a black swan event, right, of COVID-19. And now that they can actually point to this core CPI data, right, they can actually point to it and be like, hey, look, you see, we were right. This is what we've been saying for the last 4 months or whatever, right? And yeah, maybe you could say a little bit that they were right, right? Like, okay, yeah, they were talking about the price of used cars and all this shit for the longest of time and how it was, kind of making the high inflation numbers look much worse than they really were, right? So you could say that that first thing is that that's very positive for gold, right? Because if the Fed has no reason to raise interest rates, if there's no reason for people to put more pressure on them to calm down on their monetary policy and all the money printing that they're doing, right, with also the asset purchases, um, then basically it should still be positive for gold because all of this monetary policy is just going to continue, right? On top of the fact that there's now renewed discussions or fears about COVID, et cetera, Delta, now all these new variants as well. Um, the Fed has the perfect excuse. Powell has the perfect excuse to continue the bullshit that he's been doing, right? You can point to the CPI. Look, actually, inflation isn't that bad, right? Which kind of then also leads me to the second point, why I still think this is good for gold. And what I was kind of mentioning before in the last gold video that I did, hinting that when price was going down, right, and we went below 1800 and we were getting towards 1780 or so, it seems like we found support, by the way, at the 1780 level, right, kind of where we were looking at before, either 1780 or if it was going to go lower back to 1750 or 60. Seems like we found some support on 1780 now, right? But the point is that in that video when I was saying that, I was saying, hey, but watch out still for the CPI next week because in the longer term narrative as well, okay, Powell can point to this month-on-month CPI decreasing or being lower than expected, but that CPI year on year, the 5.3%, which is just meeting expectations, is fucking high, okay? I can't stress this enough. It's fucking high. And if you live in the States, right? If you live in the States, I know this because I've been talking to my friends who are out there. Obviously, I'm I have an American passport. I am American to some extent. Lived there before. And with all the friends that I have there talking to them, people are feeling the inflation right now. The inflation is there. It doesn't matter what some fucking core CPI month-on-month data says, okay? Just because the price of used cars are going slightly down does not mean that the inflation problem that the American economy is facing because of the monetary policy that the government has been implementing, it means that it's not going to go away, okay? Just because the price of used cars are going slightly down, okay? And when you have that longer term narrative there, right, of inflation getting totally out of control and the government not knowing what to do with it, and then at the same time, you have the shorter term narrative of core CPI being down a little bit, so the Fed doesn't have to react by raising interest rates or doing something which would generally be pretty bad for the price of gold in the short term. You have almost like a perfect storm, in my opinion, right? And then on top of that, let's not even bring up the fact that now COVID is coming back again and the jobs data was lower and all this kind of shit too, right? So that's like number three, right? The third thing, which is just creating this perfect storm for just a continuation of the monetary policy and just a weakening of the dollar, right? I mean, just a weakening of the dollar and consequently also a strengthening of gold, in my opinion. So again, looking back at gold price now, I've said this for a while, and I'll continue to say this until I see something else that, or see something, or hear something that makes me want to change my opinion on this. But I don't see why anything below 1800 is a bad price to get into gold because the fundamental narratives are just so strong in favor of gold right now, both short term and longer term. Okay, and the CPI data, in my opinion, that just came out a few hours ago proves it or just shows that that's really the case. And again, I don't really see this changing either in the coming, I mean, at least in the next couple of months. I mean, I could be wrong about that, but I don't see this changing. I mean, we have just kept on seeing this is the same thing that was happened last month. So it's almost kind of that's why I was mentioning last week, like, hey, just be aware, like just because we're going down, we're below 1800 doesn't mean that we're not going to rebound. I mean, watch out for the CPI coming out. And sure enough, I think that's what we're going to see. And I expect the same thing next month. I don't see how it's going to change. Um, I mean, maybe you guys don't or disagree with me on that. If you do, please leave a comment because I'm happy to have a discussion. But I just don't see this changing. So anyway, that's kind of my fundamental take on the CPI data that came out. I do think that this should lead to some more positive price action to gold. I'm not sure if we're gonna, if it's like a strong enough narrative necessarily without all the technicals, et cetera, as well, and just people needing to take profits that we're going to retest 1830 as a result over the coming week or so. But I do expect that we should be able to continue going to some higher levels, hopefully see some a retracement and then a continuation pattern, something like that. But fundamentally, again, gold is good or gold is strong, and that hasn't changed. And certainly the events or the data released today has only reaffirmed that, in my opinion. Okay, so anyways, that's my take. Um, if you like my thoughts, if you like the content, if you like the video, please consider giving this a like. Definitely leave a comment. I'll respond, and I'll see you guys in the next video.